Welcome to our book club, Toxic Parents. We are making our way through. So we're on the top of page 42, and I'm going to start with reading the section about the vanishing parent. So far we've been talking about emotionally absent parents. Physical absence creates its own set of problems. I first met Ken, 22, in a hospital group for young adult substance abusers. He was a thin, black-haired young man with piercing dark eyes. It was obvious in our first group meeting that he was enormously intelligent and articulate. But he was also very self-deprecating. He had trouble sitting still for the full 90 minutes, and he was a bundle of nerves. I asked him to stay after group to tell me a little about himself. Mistrusting my motives, he played the tough, street-smart hustler. But after a few minutes, he began to see that I had no ulterior motive, that I was genuinely interested in easing his pain, and he softened as he spoke to me. I always hated school, and I didn't know what the hell else to do, so I enlisted in the Army when I was 16. That's where I got fucked up on drugs. I was always a fuck up anyway. I asked what his parents thought of his enlistment. It was just my mom and me. She wasn't thrilled with the idea, but I think she was glad to get rid of me. I was always getting into trouble and making her life miserable. She was a real pushover. She let me do what I wanted no matter what. I asked him where his father had been during this period. My folks got divorced when I was 8. Mom really got bent out of shape from it. I always thought my dad was hip, you know. He always did dad things with me. We'd watch sports together on television, and he'd even take me to a game once in a while. Man, that was great. The day he moved out, I cried my fucking eyes out. He told me nothing was going to change, that he'd still come over and watch TV with me, and he'd see me every Sunday, and we'd still be pals. I believed him. I was such a dork. For the first few months, I did see him a lot, but then it was once every month, then every 2 months, then practically never. A couple of times I called him up, and he told me he was really busy. About a year after he left, my mom told me that he'd married some woman with 3 kids and moved out of state. It was hard for me to get it, that he had a new family now. I guess he liked them better, because he sure forgot about me in a hurry. So this is a heavy little story, right? Probably hit you in different ways. What I want to say about this there's many parts to probably unpack, but one really important part that sometimes doesn't get addressed is the role of father in somebody's life. So it's like the vanishing parent, you know? But in Vedic psychology, we talk about the core foundation of how you are made. Your whole personality is based on your relationship with your father and your relationship with your mother, and they have different roles. Father is supposed to protect. Father is supposed to provide. Father is supposed to play. Father is supposed to help you see your svabhāva. He's supposed to say, you love sports, and you're an athlete too, and that's your thing. Or, oh, you love sports, but you don't like to play them, you like to watch them. Maybe you'll be the sports, what are they called? Reporter. I don't know what they're called. But, you know, he will notice the nuances of your svabhāva as well. Not just you love sports, so you should play sports. But what do you love about it? You know, and what sport is it? And is it really that you like sports, or do you just like the intensity of practicing it? Or is it that you don't really like sports, you just like being on a team so you can bond with other people? Or is it, you know, there's so much to watch on the person, what it is specifically, you know? So it's this father did one of those roles, right, that I heard. He played. I mean, playing means watch TV with his son. Not much, right? But a lot of the other stuff was missing, you know, and that's really important. And then the father vanishes altogether. Then he goes and marries someone else with kids, you know, so this most likely, I don't know, you know, how much the story is going to get into it, but if you have a father with that kind of thing, he's not in your life, he's not seeing your svabhāva, you're going to grow up as an adult, you're not going to know who you are, you're not going to know what you're good at, what you like, what you don't like, and just say you are good at something. If your father doesn't see it and tell you and regularly nurture that in you, you're going to think that it's something you shouldn't do, even if it's your core nature, you know. It could be that you love animals and you just want to be with animals, but your dad says, oh, animals are horrible, they're dirty and nasty, but you just love animals. Then what kind of message do you think that's sending to you? That there's something like fundamentally wrong with you for liking animals, so you shouldn't like animals. That's bad. And your dad's like, but it would be really good if you became a chef. So now your whole life you're cooking in the kitchen and making nice food for people. But like, there's like a stray dog out there and you're running to go, or there's a bird, or, somehow you're going to try to get your svabhāva met. But if your father doesn't do it, then it's our job as an adult to figure it out for ourselves. And that's a foundational thing. Who are you? Then when you come to Bhakti Yoga, you bring that svabhāva and you can do your thing. But many people have no idea. You're just who your parents wanted you to be. That's not your svabhāva. So who are you really? And then how are you nurturing that? So you can show up. It's almost like your nature, your svabhāva, you could imagine it like a very supercharged rocket launcher. And if your rocket's over here, you're just sitting on the ground. Everything feels heavy. But if you put it on top of the launcher, it's you and in your body-mind complex, and you put it on top of your svabhāva, and you live your life according to that, you take off. You launch. You have boundless energy, for that thing. So that's why it's so important. But then what happens is, because the father, even if he's in your life, doesn't see it. Why? He doesn't even know his. Most fathers don't even know their own, because their fathers didn't see it. So it's a tough job to go through life if you don't know what it is you're supposed to be doing, what you're good at. And most of the times in those first few years, we actually know what we're good at, but our parents don't validate. They don't say, ooh, you're really good at that. Let's keep going with that one. They don't see it, they don't validate. So we think negatively about ourselves. We might even feel guilty. It'd be too easy if I just did that thing, wouldn't it be? I remember, I was a businesswoman before being a therapist and a teacher, and I felt so guilty. I'm like, wait a minute, this is too easy. I can sit there and talk to people all day and listen to their problems. I would get paid for that, because I'd already been doing it my whole life. And I'm like, I can make money doing that? I can drop this other business thing? I don't want to do the business thing. But I felt like it was like I was less than if I actually did my svabhāva. I felt like there was a defect in me, Even though I had a whole 4-year undergraduate degree in that, my dad was like, don't do that, So I'm like, after even that, he was so invalidating that I'm like, yeah, that's just like a nothing job, So it's very important for the father to be in your life, to see your svabhāva, and obviously none of us are kids anymore. So if it didn't happen for you, it's very important that we take seriously, deeply trying to understand what is my nature and how aligned am I with what my real nature is. And there's people out there, that's what they specialize in, helping you figure that out. There's like human design is one of the ones that goes pretty deep, where they really understand you and they help you understand. And then you have to answer some tough questions about yourself. Like, well, should I still keep doing this thing? If I could do that thing, and maybe I'd have to take a financial hit, or maybe I'd have to move, or I'd have to make some significant change. I'd have to wake up earlier, or I'd have to do something. But is it worth it to align myself with my, God-given superpower? So that's a really important piece, at least in Vedic psychology, that we go very deep on. Getting your foundation built first. Svabhāva is one important part coming from father, And with that comes discipline. Father's also supposed to discipline you. So if the dad's just sitting around watching TV with him and then he's not in his life at all, how is this kid going to turn out? The father should be there saying, okay, now that we know your svabhāva, you're totally into animals, let's go to the zoo and let's start doing things, let's get a puppy, or let's do things related to animals, and then the discipline gets built in around the svabhāva. Because parents usually, the fathers, if they are disciplinarian, they're doing it in an authoritarian way, without any heart. It's harsh and it's cold, and it doesn't have to do with any empathy, any attunement. It's just like, do this, do that. But we don't want that. We want the discipline to be built in naturally into them attuning to who you are. And then saying, okay, well, after you do this, the puppy also has to go to the bathroom. It's not just play and snuggle time. You bring it out for a walk or whatever. So they teach the discipline through what you already love. And father should play with you too. He should be out playing with the puppy with you, teaching you how to take care of the puppy. Get up, the puppy needs a walk every morning, so he should do that with you. So there's a way that if your father wasn't there, that we can actually start doing that for ourselves. So not only seeing your svabhāva, but then putting some discipline around that, like a father should have. Babaji even did that whole e-course. It's called From Dog to God. It's one of our e-courses, the Doggy Daily Routine. He talks about the importance of a daily routine. and he tells you how to do that, how to implement that in your life. So there's a lot of our e-courses are kind of ways you could think of getting the samskara that you didn't get originally, going and plucking that one off and studying and hearing from Babaji how to do it and how to implement it in your life, So I just wanted to say that because the importance of Father and those things he's supposed to do. We also have that e-course called the World of the Ideal Father. So in there it says very specifically the specific things he was supposed to do. So if you didn't have the Father presence, it's not going to suddenly appear in your life. What's going to happen is you're going to go for people who have that presence and you're going to try to get it from them. They call it daddy issues. You're going to project onto some person who triggers your father, your lack of father, and then you're going to try to get that from them. And it doesn't ever work. Never going to work, So it's better to say, okay, whether I'm male, whether I'm female, doesn't matter. There's a certain energy and qualities and characteristics of a father that I need to give to myself. So I better find out what those are and then how to give it specifically, It's part of reparenting your inner child. Okay. So now it says, this time it's going to be different. Ken's tough guy facade was crumbling fast. He was clearly uneasy about this talk of his father. I asked him about the last time he'd seen his father. It was when I was 15, and it was a big mistake. I got sick of just Christmas cards, so I decided I was going to surprise him. Man, was I excited. I hitched means hitchhiking, It looks like he didn't have enough money for a car or a ride, so hitchhiking means you stand on the road, stick your thumb out, and a random stranger picks you up and gives you a ride. It's called hitchhiking. And he said hitched. I hitched all the way there, 14 hours. So that means it probably wasn't even with one person, Some person will say, oh, I'm going from Boston to New York. Okay, and then in New York, they're like, you got to get off because I'm stopping here. Then you go on the road again, stick your thumb out, and a random truck driver or just any person picks you up and takes you to the next spot. So he did that, it looks like, I'm sorry to say, but if he had a father who was in his life in those early years, he would have learned that you don't do that, that's unsafe. And because the father's also job is to protect. So the father in those early years would have taught him about strangers, about how you don't put yourself in positions where you can get hurt, in dangerous positions, but he didn't have that, you can tell. That's why he's doing that. So I guess I expected some big welcome. I mean, he was friendly, but it was no big deal. After a while, I started to really feel shitty. It was like we were total strangers. He was falling all over himself with these little kids, and I just sat there feeling like a complete a-hole. This guy swears a lot. Man, did I get loaded after I left his house. Get loaded means get drunk or high. After I left his house that night, I still think about him a lot. I sure as shit wouldn't want him to know I was here. As soon as I get out of here, I'm going to try again. This time it's going to be different. It's going to be man to man. So you see that? That's another thing. You know how I always talk about it, you guys? This happy ending. So our inner child, not us as the adult who's studying, how relationships really work, but our inner child just so desperately wants for this happy ending. We so desperately want for our dad to finally, see us and connect with us, which is what his thing is. So now, after he basically got rejected and ignored by his father, he said he's going to try it again. He did a bunch of drugs. He ended up in a drug addiction treatment center, all this stuff. And he's like, I'm going to try again as soon as I get out. That's because he doesn't understand the difference between his adult self and his inner child. The inner child will make him try again and again and again. And if he doesn't understand, there's two people here. The mature adult self who's not emotional, and the inner child who's very emotional. So he's like, yeah, I'm going to try it again. They've merged into one, So what he should say to his inner child is what? What would be a good idea if he realized that was his inner child who wants the happy ending, who wants to try it again? What should he say? What should he say to his inner child? Malika, you have an idea?
You can first acknowledge, yes, I see you really have the wish for this happy ending, but it will not happen.
Why? Janava can't believe it. Janava's like, ah! Janava, you want to add to that? You're just a heartbreaker. Would you say that to a little 5-year-old who's like, oh yeah, we're going to to see Dad again. He was like, I know you want to happen, but it's not going to happen. Get a life. Get a grip. You're dreaming. Would you say it? I mean, you can think that as the adult, but how do you make it nice for a 5-year-old?
Well, I would say that, well, father was not available. He was busy. Don't worry. But I can take care of you.
Yeah.
What is it that you really like?
Yeah. So acknowledge that father wasn't there for you, right? But I can take care of you. Has to be told in a soft way, but also that you're not alone, that I'm with you, right? Very good. You want to add something, Jonathan?
I will have say the same thing as Jaya. Like, I know that you're hurting and it must be feel terrible.
Yeah.
He was not there for you, but I am there for you, and we're gonna have our happy ending.
Yeah.
Just the two of us.
Yeah.
I'm
Very
gonna be
good.
your dad, and
Yeah.
something like that.
Good. Kamala, I saw your hand moving. You have an idea? Want to add something? You were like, no. No.
Yeah, I will say, okay, I know that this was very hurtful for you,
Yeah.
and but now I'm here for you, and we can do things together, and I will be always with you, and yeah, you're my sweetie, and we can go on throughout all our life together. There will no anything like an abandonment for you, and I will be present here for you.
Okay, but what do you think he's thinking? How would you feel if you want to see your dad? You desperately want to see your dad. How would you feel if they're like, don't worry about him, I'm here. Is mom the same as dad? Is that the same bond? He's a boy, he wants his dad. And you're like, don't worry, I'm here. I love you, you're my sweetie. He's like, where's my dad? I want to see my dad, I want to make it work. How would you address that part? You have an idea, Nayashri?
I would say that, of course, sweetie, you want to be with your father, and I see that how hurt you are being in a position where you keep trying to get something from him and he's not seeing you. That's very, very frustrating, and I feel very, very sad for you. I see that what it causes to you when he's not being there and taking care of you, and I want to take care of you. I don't want you to feel hurting. It's like that. So I want to take care of you now, and I want to do what you want to do. And yeah.
Good. Jaya? Vilas?
I would add to it, and I would ask, what would you like? I would say, I would like to hear about your feelings. Please tell me, how do you feel? And I would also like to hear what you would like to do.
Okay.
And then we can do it together.
So as his mother, you wouldn't know his feelings? You would need to ask? Empathetic mothers, they don't need to ask. Especially when the kid's reeling. It's obvious. He's triggered. His specific feelings. So don't put them in a position where he already doesn't have a dad. So when you say, I'd like your feelings, and what do you want to do? He's 5. He's like, I don't know, I just want to see my dad. That's what I want. Like how I feel and what do you want to do?
Okay.
Maybe if he's 15, a teenager, you could ask. But a 5-year-old or whatever, a young boy who wants to see his dad, you have to be the parent. The permissive parent's going to talk like that. And try to be a friend. Well, how do you feel? What do you want to do? But you're not the friend, you're authoritative. Sweetie, I can see you're very, like what Nayashri is saying, you're hurt. You are hurt when you're in his company. It's very painful for you. And I don't want to expose you to that. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. I'm your mother and I love you very much. And it breaks my heart that your father is not able to be there for you. And I won't expose you to that again. Do you see? Because if you say, what do you want to do? He's going to say, I want to see my dad. How I feel mad at you because you won't let me see him. So you don't put it on him. You have to educate him that you know better. You want to add something, Jay?
I was also thinking, of course, to ask him, if it's a boy and I'm the mother, then I would ask more like, is there something specific that you miss with your daddy? What was it?
Yeah.
maybe he will say, well, we were playing football or something, then I will say, okay, can I take that role now? Can we play?
That's good.
You know, something like this, just to make him more playful.
Yeah.
Because boys are more playful.
Yeah.
And yes, and indeed there has to be then more discipline, because at that time the mother has to take on a little bit father role, which is difficult.
Yes.
But I would at least try to do that and make him more, you know, let's go outside, let's go and play, take the ball, something like this.
Yeah, that's very good.
Different.
So what you want to do is both, right? So you want to go in and say, I'm not going to let you go there, sweetie, because remember what happened last time? You know, Dad hurt you. And I'm so sorry. I wish he could be there for you in the way that you need and you deserve. And it breaks my heart that he can't. And then you say, then you don't just wallow in that. How do you feel? What do you want? Then you say, you know what? But I'm here. And I'm sorry I'm not your father. I know I'm different. But I can try to throw the football with you, you know, or something like that. Like, try to get him into the present moment and do something once you tell him, no, we're not going to go do that, because that's hurtful to you. And remind him, Dad's hurt you many other times, and I just, you know, I don't want to see you hurt like that. I don't want to expose you to that. But we can also do something now, here and now, you know? And then he's like, but I want a man. And it's like, okay, well, Uncle Jimmy, you know, let's call Uncle Jimmy. He lives down the street. And let's get him to come play. So you stay with him, you know, you don't just tell him no, but you don't give him the full reign of what you want to do. You know, it's kind of like you do within the bounds of what's safe for him. Because he doesn't know. Does that make sense? Okay. Good job, you guys. Okay. So where were we with our friend? So this time it's going to be different, right? Yeah, as soon as I get out here, I'm going to try again. This time it's going to be different. Man to man. So when Ken's father abandoned his young son, he left a deep void in the boy's life. Ken was crushed. He tried to cope by acting out his anger, both at school and at home. In a sense, he was calling out to his father, as if his need for discipline might draw his father back. But Ken's father seemed unwilling to heed the call. In the face of overwhelming evidence that his father did not want to be a part of his life anymore, Ken continued to hold on to the dream that somehow he could win back his father's love. That's a happy ending, you know? It's so sad. In the past, his hope had set him up for severe disappointment, to which he'd react by turning to drugs. I told him I was concerned that this chain of events would continue to dominate his adult life unless we worked together to break the pattern. Unconsciously, Ken was still rationalizing his father's abandonment by taking the blame. As a child, he had assumed that some deficiency in himself had caused his father to beat a hasty retreat. Having arrived at this conclusion, self-hatred was bound to follow. He became a young man without purpose or direction in his life. Despite his intelligence, he was restless and unhappy in school and looked to the army as a solution to his problems. When that didn't work, he turned to drugs in a desperate attempt to both fill his inner emptiness and deaden his pain. So see that, you guys? See what I mean? So it said that, I'm just going along the line of svabhāva, right? So he had this self-hatred, and look, he became a young man without what? Do you see that line? He became a young man without purpose and direction. That's the point. So the father has to put that in you. He has to see it and he has to put it in you, you know? And if not, then you're going to be attracted, probably you're going to feel very confused about life, you know? And you're going to be attracted to someone or something that has a very clear purpose and mission, like the army. Think about it. It matches his samskara of, because he didn't have a father in his life. So what's the army? It's like a very loud, authoritarian father. There's not a lot of snuggly, warm love there. It's authoritarian. It's like, get up early, you pathetic fool, and run 5 miles, and I don't care if you're vomiting. Push harder and get up that hill, and you're the loser. That's how they talk to you. In the boot camp, they beat you down, you know. But I think he's so desperate. A lot of people probably in the army who are there, if you analyze them, you know, they need some sort of purpose, direction, missing father in childhood, you know, and there it is. It's like real strong. So in a way, they're getting that samskara, even though it's not the best one, you know, but at least they have something they can wake up and say, I'm part of that. I'm part of that thing. You know, because a lot of, at least in the US, a lot of people who are joining the army, they're kind of also stuck in a family where there's not a lot of money, so they can't go to college. But if you join the army, then you're part of something that you can further, you can get out of that bad neighborhood or that bad family situation, you know, and then you have a father figure in a way, which is whoever your boss is or whatever in the army. So it's a very interesting analysis probably, if you analyze the samskaras, the childhood relationship of the people who are joining those very strong organized military things and what their childhood relationship was like with father. You know, there's probably some match there. But so that's what he went for. You know, now I have a purpose, now I know who I am, now it may not match at all. He literally may be the world's next Picasso best artist. But because the father didn't help him see, then he's just going to go for that because it's real clear. Join the army, and in this amount of time you're going to be this, and if you work this hard and do this things, you can move up to this position. And it's very clear. But that's what father was supposed to do in our childhood. Very clear. And you should do this, and no, don't do that, and no, don't do that, and do this. And that fits better for you. And that, the whole time, he's constantly helping you adjust and get clear and go better and do better like that. Like a coach almost, you know. So this is, in a way, how he's making up for that, it looks like. But then it says that that he would end up doing drugs, right? So that's the thing. There's no love. Authoritarian parents, there's no love. So he's getting the discipline he needs. He's getting the purpose. But at the core, it's not probably related to his svabhāva, number one. And number two, he has a deep sense of emptiness. Lack of love from father. Because the father's not just supposed to discipline you. He's supposed to play with you. He's supposed to see who you are, how you are, and genuinely like you, and have those father-son heart talks that a mother really can't. She'll try, but she's a different type of person, you know? So the father's supposed to be like, well, when this happens, and the mother can't talk like that to the son, you know? And just like a father can't talk like that to the daughter, it's a different relationship than mother and daughter. You know, so he's really missing a whole, almost like half of himself, you know. So then he turns to drugs to numb it out in a desperate attempt to both fill his inner emptiness and deaden his pain. Ken's father may have been an adequate parent before the divorce, but afterward he was woefully deficient in providing even the minimal contact that his young son so desperately needed. By failing to do this, he significantly impaired Ken's developing sense of worth and lovability. There's no such thing as a happy divorce. Divorce is invariably traumatic for everyone in the family, even though it may well be the healthiest course of action under the circumstances. But it is essential for parents to realize they are divorcing a spouse, not a family. Both parents have a responsibility to maintain a connection to their children despite the disruption in their own lives. A divorce decree is not a license for an inadequate parent to abandon his or her children. A parent's departure creates a particularly painful deprivation and emptiness within a child. Remember, children almost always conclude that if something negative happens within the family, it's their fault. Children of divorced parents are particularly prone to this belief. A parent who vanishes from his children's lives reinforces their feelings of invisibility, creating damage to their self-esteem that they'll drag into adulthood like a ball and chain. So I'll read this last paragraph again. This is the whole thing Babaji highlighted, so he must be onto something here that he thinks is very important. A parent's departure creates a particularly painful deprivation and emptiness within a child. Remember, children almost always conclude that if something negative happens within the family, it's their fault. Children of divorced parents are particularly prone to this belief. A parent who vanishes from his children's lives reinforces their feelings of invisibility, creating damage to their self-esteem that they'll drag into adulthood like a ball and chain. There's a lot of heavy points to that, right? So this idea that it's your fault, it's my fault, you know, I must have done something to make dad leave, to make mom and dad break up. It's very, very common, you know. And then they take that with them, and they think a lot of things are their fault, you know? And they try to kind of make up for it. Maybe they have some guilt or they just can't feel clean and happy and peaceful, you know? So even though that divorce happened a long time ago, they think that they're responsible for that fracture, and that's actually, it builds up over time, you know? They continue to think that even if they're not thinking it 24/7, but it's there. It's there, and it just gets reinforced in different ways, you know, that they think certain things are their fault that are not their fault. And nobody ever told them it's not your fault. It's not that his dad went and said, sweetie, listen, I've got some issues that I haven't worked out. And Mom and I have some issues. It has nothing to do with you. We love you very much, but we can't be together, but I'm still going to be in your life. I mean, none of that happened. His dad just vanished. So what's the kid going to think, you know? And so because the mother didn't talk to him in a way that he could understand, and probably he didn't have other family members or a counselor, nobody digested it with him. So it's still left at that age, 8 or 7 or whenever the dad left, that young age. His version of the story is back then. You know, it's not a very thoughtful, deep, insightful version of the story. It's just that it's my fault. That's it. You know? But remember, those samskaras, those deep impressions in your unconscious mind, that's what drives his behavior today. So she said, like a ball and chain, you know, it's still holding him down. He can't get a relief from it, you know? And a lot of those times, these very deep, heavy, painful feelings, not only do they make you do the same painful thing again, like just say he never is able to make the success with the dad. That doesn't mean he's not going to pick a man in his life, maybe the head of the army, someone who's totally unavailable, and he's going to try to befriend him. He's going to overextend himself to that man who has really no interest in being his friend, but the daddy issues get projected onto some person who's way higher than him, who's not possible to be his friend, and he'll probably put himself in a position where he is trying to give him money or serve him in some way, or try to hang out with his family for Christmas, or just do something where he's trying to get in his life. And the guy's probably going to reject him because it's a normal boundary on the other guy's side, the general of the army, you know. But this guy's still trying to connect with daddy. And it may not be that extreme. It may be more subtle, like his friend. It'll be a friend in the army, but the friend's not emotionally available for whatever reason. The friend has his own life. Maybe he's already married with kids. Something that will mimic how he felt in that original relationship with his father. And he's going to try, he might even drop out of the army just to help the friend move or something. Something like, you're like, what? That was your whole identity. You're in the army and you were doing everything, and you dropped out of that just because your friend needed you to help move that weekend? That doesn't make sense. But it'll make you make really bad decisions based on a 5-year-old emotional inner child who's just desperate for connection with daddy. That's what I'm saying, that happy ending he's hoping for. If all of us have some inner child who's looking for some sort of happy ending in one of our stories that didn't end in a happy way. And that's when you have to catch yourself and say, am I really doing a healthy choice here? And that's why if you know your svabhāva, you're like, am I staying in the lane of who I am and what I'm here to do? Or am I like going way off over there? Why am I veering so far over there? If you know yourself and you know why you're here and what you're doing, it's easier to ground yourself and not let your inner child take you off into some netherland based on their feelings, trying to get a happy ending with something that's never going to happen. Even if he just say he helps the guy move. He quits the army. He says, I don't care. I know you scheduled me to be here this weekend. I don't care. I'm not going to be here because my friend wants help moving. And they're like, but then what are you going to do after the weekend? You helped your friend, but then what? He's like, I don't care. I just need to be a good friend. Why does he want to be so loyal to a guy he met a year, just he's known for 1 year in the army? Why? Why do you think? What is it specifically that would drive him to be so loyal to a guy that he's known for 1 year, that he met in the army, that needs help moving, and he's going to quit the army to go do that? I'm making it up, but what do you think would be driving him to think like that and do that and act on that? Quit the army to go help his friend move for 2 days. What do you think, Vila?
I think he hopes that his friend will acknowledge his dedication and reciprocate by, taking him close, revealing something about himself, and, moving the relationship to a next level of closeness.
Yeah. That's right. That's driving him, and it makes him blind. It makes him say, just forget the whole army, forget the whole thing that I signed up for. Like, so basically that wasn't really his svabhāva. That was just a desperate attempt to feel like I'm someone. But the real thing he wants is that connection with Father. So he's going to drop everything. He's going to give everything for that guy to feel close and hope the guy reciprocates. And surprise, surprise, do you think the guy's going to reciprocate in the way that he needs? What would be the way he needs? Let's say if we could program the guy to reciprocate perfectly. He goes with the guy, he does the move, he helps the guy for the whole weekend. And if the guy made the perfect response of a reciprocation, perfect for him of what he wants, the happy ending, what would it be? What would the friend do you think? Okay, Mohini, what would the friend do you think?
I think he would desire him to be the inner parent, which he didn't have externally.
Mm-hmm.
Like to say, like who validates his emotions.
Yeah.
And to really take care and protect him and support him and validate him for what he is and what he is doing. And
Yes.
him actually to the direction which he is searching in the military.
Okay, so the friend would validate him and tell him like, oh, you're so helpful, you're so nice, you're so kind. And then what did you say about the direction in the military?
That this inner parent validates that desire which is driving him to be in the army, and this inner parents would support that, like, yes, we will now search for the inner direction in a more healthy way.
Okay, good. So the friend would say, the friend would say something like, are you really into the military? It doesn't seem like it. If you're just going to drop it for the weekend with me, I mean, I appreciate it, you're a good friend, but what are you really into? It seems like you're more into like social work or something, right? He would honestly help him figure out his svabhāva. Good, Mohini. That's important. He's looking for that from the friend too. Love, connection, loyalty. What else? What else would the perfect friend do, Vilas?
Maybe also then invite him and spend time with him regularly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So just what would be the dream words if it wasn't a sentence? What would the friends say? What would just be music to this guy's ears? Janova?
Would you like to move in with me?
Exactly. That is what he wants. Do you see the inner child is still looking for dad to invite him to move in with him? He's still looking for that. So he's willing, when he sees a close opportunity, like, okay, this guy's moving, he needs help. If I drop everything, maybe I'll move all the boxes in, and then the guy will say, hey, you move in too. Exactly. That's what a 5-year-old is looking for, or a 7-year-old. Good, Janova, that's exactly it. You want to add something, Kamala?
Yeah, it was the same, only I will express it like, oh, you did so nice work for me, and you're so valuable, and you're so nice. Why you don't come and live with me?
Exactly.
Stay with me.
So validate him and say, you're such a good friend. He wants that connection of like, even though this guy's not his father, it's a friend, but that male connection with somebody. So he says, hey, you know what? I'm glad you quit the army. Now you can come live with me and we'll figure out what you really want to do. Right? So I'm not saying that's the healthy response. I'm saying when you're looking from the inner child, it's very helpful sometimes when you're being triggered by your inner child to say, what does he really want? What do you actually really want? Just if you could have the dream thing. And if you're connected with the inner child and your inner child says, I want to quit the army job, I want to go help my friend move, and then what do you want your friend to do? And then the inner child will be like, I want the friend to ask me to move in. That helps you get your head screwed on straight and go, wow, okay. Would that be a healthy choice for me? Because if you don't go through that first of all, if you don't realize you're triggered emotionally, and you don't go through a set of questions to help you see what your inner child really wants, what he's hoping for, and what he'd want the other person to do, and to see how sometimes, even if you've got all that, it's not going to really heal it. Then you go, okay, this is from an inner child's dream, like a happy ending dream. Glad I heard it. I can see why you want that, but you know what, sweetie? That chapter's over. We're never gonna be 8 years old again, and Dad's never gonna be able to invite us to go live with him again. And I'm very sorry. I know you want that. That's why when you get out of the drug addiction treatment center, you want to go try again. But it's not going to happen. in the way that you needed it at that time. You know, so that's some grief around there. It might be a very heavy grief, but then once we acknowledge and realize that, then we say, but let's see what is possible now. It looks like what you're wanting from, like, what are you wanting from that friend? If he did that, what are you going to get out of that? Oh, you're going to feel a connection with another male. That looks like it's really important to you. And you want that, you want another male figure to help you figure out who you are and what you should be doing. That looks like it's important to you. There are people in our life that we can do that with. But don't do it in a sideways way. Be clear with what we need and then figure out, well, there's professionals you can hire to help you figure out who you are and what you should be doing. And it looks like you're in the need of a good guy friend, but it should be reciprocal. It should be half-half. Like, you don't drop everything just to do that for him. You know, and that's too extreme. You want a guy friend who's in your neighborhood, who you can have a healthy relationship with, and you can not rely on him for too much. And that puts a lot of pressure on the person. Imagine if you move in with him. I mean, it's over the top, but like, you see the inner child wants that so badly, so you have to catch it. First listen to it and catch it, and then say it's probably not a good plan, but I can see how you want that, because that is what you wanted. But you're putting that onto this current situation, which is a little weird. I mean, you don't want to say it like that's your inner child, but once you realize it doesn't make sense, then you can adjust. Like, so what would make sense? What is it that you really want? We can get it, but let's get it in a healthy way. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Okay. So it's what they didn't do that hurts. It's easy to recognize abuse when a parent beats a child or subjects a child to continual tirades. But the toxicity of inadequate or deficient parents can be elusive. It's difficult to define. When a parent creates damage through omission rather than commission, through what they don't do rather than what they do, the connections of adult problems to this sort of toxic parenting become very hard to see. Since the children of these parents are predisposed to deny these connections anyway, my job becomes especially difficult. Compounding the problem is the fact that many of these parents are so troubled themselves that they evoke pity. Because these parents so often behave like helpless or irresponsible children, their adult children feel protective of them. They jump to their parents' defense, like a crime victim apologizing for the perpetrator. Whether it's they didn't mean to do any harm or they did the best they could, these apologies obscure the fact that these parents abdicated their responsibilities to their children. Through this abdication, these toxic parents rob their children of positive role models, without which healthy emotional development is extremely difficult. Do you guys hear that? There's many points to unpack here, but one point I want to say is, if you did not have a healthy role model, you cannot develop you can't develop basically in the way you need to. Emotionally, if you don't see how your mom is and how your dad is, then what ideas are you going to get about how to be in life? I mean, from how a 5-year-old is interpreting things is not the correct way. For example, it's my fault. I made them break up. Or, look at dad. Is he a good role model? He's like sitting around watching TV with you, then he leaves when things are inconvenient. And then he just doesn't come back again for 10 years or something. So then you start doing that behavior. You don't realize it, So, and the worst part is that what this therapist is saying is that the parents are kind of so pathetic in a way that you pity them. They're so messed up, basically, that you pity them. So then the kid is in therapy. They're not a kid anymore. They're an adult. They're defending their parents, And you kind of feel bad for the parents, but you feel worse for the kid who doesn't see the damage the parents made because of their lack of. It's much easier to say, my dad beat me, and for you to say, that's called abuse, that's not okay. That's not even easy. A lot of people will still defend that. But what about the parent who's just there but doesn't ever do anything? They don't stand up for you. They don't help you see who you are. They're not saying something positive. That's very damaging. It's very damaging to the psyche of a child to not have that. That's the parent's job. They have to validate your feelings and help you see who you are and help put the boundaries of what you should and shouldn't do. And if they're all emotional themselves, how are they going to do that? If they're absorbed in their own whatever, feelings or another person or whatever it is, but if they're not focused on you, you have to be highly attuned as a parent. I was just listening to a podcast this morning, and the psychologist said that she created an attachment style survey, and that 51% of the people who filled it out got that they had a secure attachment. And it's the same thing as when we create the survey for Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Everyone's like, I'm Sattvic, you know? But the thing is that in actuality, in the population, 1% of people have a secure attachment. 1% of people had a securely attached childhood. And 51% said they did. And that has to do with our inability to self-reflect, because our parents didn't help us do it. Our parents didn't give us feedback, direct feedback. So we think, oh, I'm securely attached. And we want to defend the parents, but basically nobody is. Everybody has one of those 3 types, you know? And Babaji and I are working right now on our own attachment style survey for you guys to take. So you can see your attachment style, because that's the foundation of any adult problem you're having. It goes back to the relationship with mother and what did or didn't happen there, and the relationship with father and what did or didn't happen there, you know? So we're going to start using this book as a platform to go deeper into your attachment style, because that way you'll get a lot of answers there. You know, and so I think it's something that's almost like invisible to us, you know, that we think, oh, you know, we have this natural desire to defend our parents, and it feels very difficult even if you say one little thing off. I mean, if you see it about them, it's easier to say it, but it's better if you say it, right? You don't want to hear someone else being like, your mom's toxic. If you say your mom, well, I don't like this thing about her, you would like it if other people are like, no, but your mom's nice. Like, you don't want to, like, if you trash your mom, even on one small thing, you know, you do not want other people who, you know. So it's very hard to see your parents clearly. It feels like almost like a personal attack of yourself, you know. But we have to do that in order to get out of it. So it's a tough job to see what it is. But the thing is, if you know their story, it's not a surprise that they behave the way they did. In fact, they probably did a pretty darn good job, considering whatever happened to them before they became your mother and father. They have a life outside of us, right? And I think that most likely they did a pretty darn good job given everything that they were struggling with. But that does not take away from how they impacted us and how it's still hurting today. And that's the part we have to see. We're not doing this book club and studying toxic parents and going into our attachment styles to attack our parents or criticize them. We're doing it to see, how did the original wound, what we call like your core wound, how did that get made? How did that get put inside of you? Because if we don't know that, it's like going to the doctor and you're like, I have a problem. And the doctor's like, where? And you're like, I don't know, just somewhere. And the doctor's like, oh, your eye, and gives you an eye drop. And you're like, no, it's not the eye. Well, where is it? I don't know, it's just like in somewhere. So we have to know, what did the parent do specifically, and where is it? Is it here? Okay, we're going to treat here. Is it that thing? You know, so we have to really get specific on what it is that they did or didn't do in a methodical way. You know, and that's the painful part, to talk about that, because we've made it a whole personality not to look at it and not to talk about it. That's actually what a personality is. That's what a personality is. That's the crazy thing. If you actually look at a person, a lot of how they behave is actually a defense mechanism to not ever go to that painful place, that original wound. So the more you start working through that, the more sattvic you get, the more almost kind of boring you get, because it's like you don't have the need for all this other stuff, all the other things that you actually have to do to kind of get attention or feel connected or have somebody see your feelings or feel love, or all that stuff is coming from a wounded inner child. So once that's healed, you know, then you'll feel a lot more grounded and things will feel smooth and easy. But to do it, we have to do this very, very painful work. You know, and then it's also hard because if you're coming here regularly and you're studying this and your parents are also in your life, it's so hard. Because then you're like, I just don't want to talk to them. I don't want to call them. I don't want to look at, you know, because like when you see it, then it's really hard to be like, oh my God, she's doing that thing again. She's actually never listens to me. All she ever does is boss me around or whatever the thing is. Because when you study it, it's like, oh my God, it's 10 times worse than I thought. So we have to be careful to, you know, try to not get them to change and realize that's how they are. Now you see it clearly. Of course you didn't see it clearly when you were a little girl or a little boy, but it doesn't mean you have to try to get them to change or take distance from them or anything like that. You know, you can, I mean, if it's hurting you, you work with your therapist to figure out the best plan specifically for you, how to protect yourself and not hurt yourself more. But at the same time, you can think, oh, wow, this is great. I'm in a relationship with them, so I can see it more clearly now. So now what else am I studying? Let me see, are they doing that too? How did I get that wound? Oh, that's how I got the wound. You can try to take a little distance emotionally from it and try to think, wow, This is like a learning lab, you know. You take care of your inner child, but if you're still in the relation with them, you can see more clearly some of the more subtle points we're making, because it's not that they've probably gone through some deep therapy and done a 180 change. So they're probably still doing the same stuff they did to you as a kid. So you can look for that and be like, oh my God, she still does that thing. Or he still does that thing, you know. And that helps you identify more. Or you can almost make a map of it, what you're trying to identify, what wounds you have that we need to treat, you know. Then you can know very specifically, I've got these three are really painful, and now I know where they're coming from, and they're making me act in this way. You can write out, I've got that wound, and I'm projecting onto that person, and it's making me act in that way. That doesn't feel good. So now how can I treat that wound? That's how it is when you go to the hospital, right? You're like, you know, oh, my heart's hurting. Okay, let's check that out. And here's the medicine for that, you know. So we want to be specific. What is the wound? How did it happen? And then how can we treat it? And that's the big picture of what we're doing with the books, because sometimes you get really deep into it and it can feel overwhelming. But you can pull yourself out and just say, we're trying to understand these stories so you can map out your own personal story of what your wounds are so we can heal them. Okay? So let me just see, did I end this page? I can't remember where, huh? The last, whether it's they didn't mean to do, no, if you are the adult child of a deficient or inadequate parent, yeah, you probably grew up without realizing that there was an alternative to feeling responsible for them. Dancing at the end of their emotional string seemed a way of life, not a choice. But you do have a choice. You can begin the process of understanding that you were wrongly forced to grow up too soon, that you were robbed of your rightful childhood. You can work on accepting how much of your life's energy has gone down the drain of misplaced responsibility. Take this first step and you'll find a new reserve of energy that is suddenly available to you for the first time. Energy that you've exhausted on your toxic parents much of your life, but which can finally be used to help you become more loving and responsible to yourself. So that's a very powerful ending of this chapter, right? The idea is that, you know, even if you're not in a relation, even if they've passed on, that some skara, that program is still in you, which is driving you most likely to be focused outward, on your partner, on your work, on your something else other than you, on what you need to do to take care of you, you know? So that's the takeaway I'd say. That any samskara you have in you, there's no samskara that is so horrible or unmanageable that you can't get out of it. So that's the good news. Once we identify, okay, I've got this thing, and I felt chronically responsible for my parents, and I had to grow up too fast, and I didn't get to have a childhood because my mom was emotionally unstable, and I was always taking care of her. I've told you guys that term, parentified child, you know. Whatever the thing is, it's your thing that you got robbed of in your childhood. Once you identify that, then you can get out of it. And so you don't have to suffer anymore, and you don't have to try to get other people to be in a relationship with you to help you get that need met. It's not needed. You can take care of it yourself once you realize what it is specifically, you know, and that's the happy ending. That's actually the happy ending. The happy ending is that you can take care of you once you know exactly what the pain is, you know. Okay? So good job today, you guys. Thank you for being here. And next week we're going to do... Oh no, next week there's no book club next week. I'm taking a week off. Speaking of self-care. So I won't see you guys next week. You guys also have the week off. I hope you enjoy yourselves and can do something also self-care-ish. And we'll get back together after that, in 2 weeks from today. Okay? Okay.